top story this morning, of course. The number of people killed in Israel since Saturday's horrific terror attack has climbed to 1,200, and these are primarily civilians. More than 900 have also been killed in Gaza, which is under heavy bombing by the Israeli Air Force.
Well, Defence Minister Yoav Gallant says he's released all restraints on his troops and the enclave will never return to what it was. Doctors are warning the health system will collapse within a week. The escalating violence started when the Hamas terror group crossed into Israel by air, land and sea to carry out the massacre. The attack has been widely condemned.
That the United States stands with Israel. We will not ever fail to have their back. We'll make sure that they have the help their citizens need and they can continue to defend themselves. Israel has the right to defend itself and its people. Full stop. There's never justification for terrorist attacks. And my administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering.
Well, joining us live from Jerusalem is writer and broadcaster Arieh Kovler. Arieh, with Israel vowing to wipe out Hamas, tensions must be running high.
Tensions are high. I think it took a long time in Israel for the reality of what happened on that Saturday to sink in. Information was short, and we're seeing the death toll has climbed from 100, 250 to 1,200 this morning. And also, as they begin to identify the victims, families get notifications that their loved ones have died or have been taken by Hamas. And so, in Israel, I think the country is still beginning to process that shock. There's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of horror, and there's a lot of anger.
Arieh, I wanted to share this, and I'm going to do this all morning. I have a very close Jewish friend who sent me a very interesting article last night, and I think we talk about widely condemned there. We've seen Joe Biden. What really got to me in this article was the description of a young woman, her name is Moore, who learnt that her grandmother had been slaughtered because a terrorist took her grandmother's cell phone, filmed her murder, and then uploaded the video onto her Facebook page so the entire family could see that. Now, just hold that thought, my friend, because you are there in Jerusalem. In the last 2 days, we've seen outside the Sydney Opera House, in the streets of London and Berlin, people shouting the most obscene and horrific things about the Jewish community. Horrific, horrific things that I wouldn't even repeat on this show. When you hear that, and you balance that with the response of the world, what do the Jewish people need and want? Because this is a seminal moment when a terrorist group can say, we're just going to wipe out a race. It's not right in any way at all, is it, Arieh?
No. I think what happened on Saturday has got to be one of the worst terror attacks in the history of the world. And not just in terms of the numbers, but the sheer brutality. That story you mentioned is one of many horrific stories that have been coming out of the areas around Gaza, of just inhuman and disgusting brutality. Israelis are terrified of how do we go back to normal, knowing that the people who did this are there living right next to us. And I think part of what we're seeing now in Gaza is a kind of Israeli sense of we can't go back to a life where it's going to happen ever again.
The problem, of course, is, and you will know this, Nick will know this, that there will be certain social commentators who will say we have to look at both sides. And I was quite touched yesterday on the show that every person we spoke to from Israel, with a personal story or not, was very open and saying, in a very dignified way, we don't want massacre at all. But this started when a terrorist group went into that music festival. Nobody wants bloodshed, but it is ISIS-like. And the world needs to know that Hamas is what it is, which is a terrorist organisation that needs wiping out, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Look, it makes me so sad when I hear about innocent Palestinians being killed, and there's no reason why their mother should have to join ours, but we can't live like this. And I don't know what the answer is. And I think every Israeli is trying to figure out the savagery, the brutality, the just horror of it is almost incomprehensible of what Hamas did. And like that can't be allowed to continue. and like I hope that our military and the world finds a way to end Hamas in the most painless and bloodless way possible for innocent people. But the people who did this, they've got to go.
Absolutely. And Arieh, can I just ask if you know what the latest is on some of those Israeli hostages? Is there any hope of them being returned to Israel?
Information has been pretty scatty. There's been no formal public demands from Hamas or Islamic Jihad or any of the other groups that may be holding them. It seems like the hostages are not necessarily being held by one single group. They may be in lots of different places. There hasn't even been a confirmed list of names. On the Israeli side, the government seems to be saying they're going to proceed as if there aren't any hostages, because if they kept them too much in mind, then we'd just be paralyzed. But it doesn't really seem like there's any progress. Even families haven't been fully updated yet. And once that begins to happen, I think the politics here might change a little bit. Once there are families who know that their loved ones are being held by this or that group, then people might be calling for different sorts of things to happen. So right now, the hostage picture is not in front and center in Israel as you would expect it to be.
So there's no update in terms of an operation to retrieve the hostages from the IDF?
Hamas have held small numbers of hostages, 1, 2, 3, before, and we've been holding some when this began. I think that while there may be specific operations to free specific people, and we may hear about them in the coming days, Gaza is one of the most heavily fortified places on earth. Hamas has essentially ruled parts of Gaza since the mid-90s, the main cities, and there are deep networks of underground tunnels with traps and also modern technology, drones, cameras. This is not going to be remotely easy for IDF forces to rescue even one hostage. And while we may see operations attempted, and there were operations to rescue them on the way in when they were being captured, I think right now, it wouldn't surprise me if we didn't see those operations, because they're so unlikely to succeed and so likely to result in yet more hostages and deaths.
Arieh, I really appreciate you joining us live from Jerusalem.